Hi, welcome along to AFTV. I'm joined by Adam White from Get French Football News. And are you doing something else at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, we're doing a radio show at Get Football on Love Sport every Monday night about European football. It's called the Get European Football Show, talking top 5 leagues for an hour and a half every Monday night. It's available as a podcast and on YouTube as well. So,
brilliant!
Hope to see you there.
Brilliant. All right. Well, listen, all that's great, yeah. But you know why I've brought you in.
Absolutely.
You already know why I've got you here. Get French Football News. Of course, they're the expert on French football, and of course, Arsenal signing Nicolas Pepe. You know, when a lot of Arsenal fans heard about this signing, we couldn't believe it. I remember the last time I had you on, you actually mentioned Nicolas Pepe, and you were saying how good a player he was. And at that time, I was thinking, oh man, wouldn't it be unbelievable if we could be getting them calibre of players? But we got no chance. And then we pulled it off.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
It's unbelievable for us Arsenal fans. But the reason why I've got you back on is because I want you to give us the lowdown on Nicolas Pepe. Who is he? How good is he? Is he as good as all the hype? That's what I want to find out from you today. So fire away. Nicolas Pepe, tell us about him.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. You said, I think first of all, how good is he? I think it's probably a good place to start. And the answer to that is very good. Although there are a few caveats to that statement. First of all, last season was a real breakout season for him. He'd been around France for a little while. He played in the third division on loan from Angers. We'd been there for quite some time. We were now at a Ligue 1 club. And
it's Angers?
Angers, yeah.
I keep saying Angus.
Because Jeff Rainey Adelaide there as well, isn't he?
Yeah, Jeff Rainey Adelaide.
So some Arsenal links for sure.
Yeah.
And he did okay at Angers when he sort of broke into their senior team, having been out on loan. He was named, I think, Player of the Season in National, which is the third division at Orléans on loan, and had a good season at Angers and was one of those players that was sort of breaking through that year at that club. They do well with young players, and Lille signed him. And during the sort of tumultuous Marcelo Bielsa reign, as it seems to be every club Bielsa ends up at. He didn't last too long, but he played him as a central striker, played him up front, and that worked okay, but I don't think Pepe saw it as his best position. And when Christophe Galtier turned up, kept Lille up because they were in danger of going down, kept them in division and really changed the philosophy of the club, moved Pepe back to his favoured right wing role, and he really flourished there last season. They finished a deserved second in Ligue 1 last year. They're absolutely brilliant, and they were quite sort of stodgy under Bielsa, surprisingly so, but Gautier got them playing counter-attacking, gung-ho football at times, and Pepe was definitely the leader of that. They had some really exciting, quick, skillful, young forwards, and he sort of led the 3 or 4 of them in attack, and he had an absolutely fantastic season, and he was a real breakout season. You really saw him develop over the course of the year. I've been saying in a number of places that the 22 league goals that he got last year is a little bit skewed by the fact that 9 were penalties. But that balance really shifted in the second half of the year, and you saw him really developing as a goal scorer and as a provider of goals as well. He was second top assists in Ligue 1 after Sergi Savigny, I think I mentioned last time as well, who's very good from dead ball. So a real talent, pacey, skillful, direct, unusual kind of running style. He's got kind of bandy, sort of spindly legs, which makes him look really unpredictable. And he is unpredictable, so it works out. But a skillful and exciting player for sure. Although only really had one breakout season so far.
Yeah, you think he deserves all the hype he's getting? There was a lot of clubs right around Europe looking at him. There's clubs there, Liverpool were interested in, Man United, Napoli, we know he was on the verge of signing for. PSG, we were told are interested in him. Do you think he's at that level?
I think he is approaching that level. I think that it's interesting that the deal in wider terms. One, the fee is quite high. I imagine that's largely down to the market itself. We're living in a world where players are going for around 100 million all the time, it seems like these days. So I imagine that's a product of the market compared to similar transfers in recent years. Perhaps it's a little bit more accepted than I would have expected. But I think it's also a sign of how highly thought of he is, and he's still 24. He's still a little bit raw, to be honest, and he's still got a long way to develop as well as being a very good player. So I'm not sure that he's the world beater quite at the moment, but he's definitely on the verge of it, and he showed flashes of it last season for sure. Well, more than flashes, to be honest. There were a string of very good displays against the bigger teams, which I think is probably where a lot of this transfer sort of fee comes from, because he was playing his best games against PSG. Lille beat them 5-1 last year. He scored and set up 2. He was brilliant. Scored goals against Lyon and Marseille and Cincinnati and won those games, really. So although maybe not against the smaller teams all the time, maybe not consistent over several games, he was showing that he could win the bigger games.
Stepped up against the big teams.
Absolutely, which is
always very important.
Yeah.
And you talked a lot about his pace. A lot of pace then.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of Lille's goals, playing that kind of counter-attacking style, was both started and finished by Pepe. There's some really good examples of where he wins the ball back in his own half. He'll exchange sort of one or two passes with the other forwards, and he'll end up finishing off at the end.
Yeah.
So fast and so direct. And the thing that sort of complements that pace at the moment is that this past season you've really seen a clinical edge develop. Like, he takes his goals really well and he takes his chances consistently, which perhaps wasn't the case at Angers in the previous season at Lille. So not only is he fast, he's a clinical finisher from that right wing as well, not playing a central striker. So lots of goals and lots of assists from them.
Yeah, and one of the problems Arsenal have had is width.
Sure.
So do you think, because I know he's left-footed, isn't he? So playing out on the right, that sort of seems to me that he'll be cutting in a lot. Does he go wide as well, though? Can he come inside and go, wide as well? For
sure. I think, though, his usual kind of way he likes to play is to cut inside, a little bit like an Arjen Robben cutting in and cutting. But the game I mentioned against PSG, he got those 2 assists. They're both crosses for headers. So he definitely is capable of going both ways in and outside his fullback. So very good on both sides.
And do you think it's exciting that, obviously the predicted front three now will probably be Lacazette down the middle, Aubameyang left, him on the right? I mean, we're all getting excited about that. Also thinking, wow, that's those three. Yeah. I mean, what do you feel about that?
On paper, it's fantastic, isn't it? And you talk a lot about the big European clubs, and you end up with these sort of acronyms of their names, and with the front three, and it really feels like Arsenal are developing that kind of attacking forward line, which can compete with most other top elite European clubs in Europe. It'd be interesting to see how that front three shakes out, because I remember the game away at Valencia in the Europa League where there was that 5 and Arsenal counter-attacked, and that proved really successful. Whether that means Pepe joins that's kind of set up and they play with a 3 and they play with Aubameyang and Pepe wide and Lacazette through the middle, or they play with 2 and even Pepe in behind maybe, and they counter-attack in that way. But there's definitely going to be a lot of pace in that Arsenal front line, and it's definitely going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah, I think that might be important as well, because one of the things that's been very poor with Arsenal over the past couple of seasons has been our away form in general. I'm not even on about Europe now, I'm on about in the Premier League. Yeah. Maybe he might help that, because that ability to counter-attack at pace is something that you need away from home. For sure, and that's something that Unai Emery likes to focus on too. He's quite a conservative coach, meticulous and obviously very, very intelligent coach, but as Arsenal fans have probably seen, and as PSG fans found out, in the big games he does like to be quite conservative. And I remember various Arsenal away games, even in the Premier League, where they were a little bit not shy, but there was a conservative attitude to how they went about winning that game, and that would suit Pepe. He loves the space to run into. They all speak French, the front three, so again there's a good sort of interlink, hopefully there. And that interplay that he built up at Lille, I think he'll translate to Arsenal really nicely. So for you, if you was to give this signing marks out of 10, right, what would you give it? I think you're going pretty high. I think 8, probably. I think, because he's a really interesting story, Pepe, just even beyond the transfer. He started out as a goalkeeper. He was a goalkeeper. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, really, really odd. I only found out myself very recently. I was researching an article, and he played in his teens in goal, and his dad was a prison guard and working in Paris, and he asked for a transfer away from their sort of pretty boisterous neighbourhood, and he ended up at a youth team in a much more rural area of France, and figured out he could be a professional football player on pitch. He hadn't really considered it before. And unlike a number of other French internationals, obviously he's Ivorian, but French internationals and players that come through Ligue 1, they go through these academies, and prestigious academies and very good academies. And Kylian Mbappe graduated Clairefontaine, which is the national academy, and Le Havre and Lyon recently. But that's not his route, So he's developed quite late. He's sort of, as a footballer, he's found his form and his place in the game relatively late. So he's come a short space in a lot. He's come not very far in a short space of time. Is what I'm trying to say. So it's a really interesting story, and I think there's still a long way to go. So it's an 8 at the moment, but it could theoretically be a 9 or a 10 in 18 months' time.
Yeah, I mean, listen. One important thing I want to ask you actually is, obviously, this is the Premier League now. There's a big difference between the Premier League, Liga, and La Liga in that it's a lot more physical. And you just spoke about him obviously being quite a streetwise kid. How do you think he'll get on with the physicality of the Premier League? Because you know what it's like. You use that pace, you go past a guy, they're going to be trying to, use certain things, more physicality to sort of block you off, and do you think he'll cope with that well?
I think he will. I mean, that's something that's really developed in the last year as well. He looks broader and more physical in this season than when he did at Angers. I watched a lot of Angers when he was there, and he looked slight and was perhaps knocked off the ball a little bit too easy. But when you reach your early 20s, you do develop physically, and he has, especially over the last year, that's something that's really stood out, and something that I think is the case for a lot of French players or players that come through Ligue 1, that France is a physical league too. It's a defensive league. Fullbacks don't get forward too much. There's a lot of physical, sort of streetwise centre-backs who will happily, be very physical with their forwards. So you've seen from other players coming from France, Tanguy Ndombele's obviously gone to Spurs, and even as far back as Sissoko went to Newcastle, those players are prepared for the physicality of the Premier League, and I think Pepe's had that grounding too. So I would say absolutely he's ready for that.
Brilliant. Well, listen, I'm glad you've come in and reaffirmed that, and we're all looking forward to seeing him playing at Arsenal. I think it's a fantastic signing. It's a major coup for Arsenal as well, isn't it? Because there were all these big clubs. I was a bit worried that PSG might try and slip in, but maybe Neymar still being there done us a favour.
Perhaps, they haven't got the money to spend. FFP's a bit of an issue. There was a sense that Pepe was holding out for them at one point, but I don't think their interest was concrete. It was Napoli or Arsenal, Liverpool and Inter perhaps in and around met the valuation, but Arsenal was definitely his and his entourage's preferred. So
for you, just tell us again, for you, good signing.
Great signing.
Great signing, so you heard it there. And I always trust these guys' judgment, you know what I mean? So, and tell us again about the radio show.
Yeah, it's the Get European Football Show on Monday night on Love Sport Radio, available on podcasts and YouTube as well at 9 o'clock.
So there you hear it. Nicolas Pepe is a gooner, and we are looking forward to seeing